you have a vision for your life. If I would have hired a divorce coach and had an emotional support or someone that I could, bounce questions off of, bounce ideas off of that seem obvious to those who are thinking clearly, I don't even want to think about how much money I wasted on my attorney, calling, being emotional, being enraged, being angry. And of course, she was gracious and took my call and my emails
and billed you for every 0.1 of time.
Absolutely. Absolutely. But again, looking back, I would have hired a coach in a heartbeat.
Okay, hi everybody. This is Dan Indante. Welcome to another episode of Middle-Aged Mess, the show for people who can't sneeze without harming at least one internal organ. Okay, so today it's going to get exciting. All right, we're talking divorce today. We are going to get down and dirty with divorce, and we have Nanette Murphy on. Hi, Nanette.
Hi, Dan.
I'm ready for you today. I'm so ready for you.
I am so ready for this.
Yeah, I don't hold things back, and we're talking about divorce. I'm already pissed off, so I just want to warn you ahead of time.
I'm foreseeing that this will be one of my most entertaining and fun podcasts.
Oh, we're not fucking around today, I can assure you. Not at all. Okay, first we're going to start on one question. So I read some materials about you a little bit. I stalked you just a little. Now, do you only deal with women in divorce or deal with women and men?
As far as coaching one-to-one, women.
Okay.
But I have a healing rebuilding program that I facilitate these meetings for, where men are also, invited to join in that. Okay. That's more group.
So basically, you and me are combatants today, is what it is.
Could be.
Okay,
Could be.
rock it on. So you handle. No, I understand. Look, are you divorced?
I am. That's why I'm doing what I'm doing.
Okay. So before I get into all like the nitty-gritty, I kind of like to find out a little bit about people, kind of where they grew up, like how they got to where they are. So why don't you give me a little background on Nanette Murphy?
A little background. Wow. I am born and raised in Canada, a little town just outside of Windsor. So I'm a border city girl.
Okay.
Across from Detroit.
How's your hockey?
I don't play.
Wait, hold on. Let's stop right there. What do you mean you don't play? You're a Canadian. Of course you play hockey. You're not allowed to be a Canadian. You get sent out to America if you don't play hockey.
I'm a girl. Girls didn't play hockey back when I was growing up.
That's true. That's true. Okay, yeah. I understand. I got it.
So are you familiar with Windsor?
Yeah, it's right across the bridge from Detroit.
And the theatrical dancers that they were always from Windsor?
Ooh, no, I don't know. Are we talking strippers or what are we talking here?
Yeah. Yes, because there's a joke when somebody meets a Canadian girl, and I'm like, oh, I hear only hockey players and strippers come from Windsor, and then they'll ask a girl, what team do you play for?
Well, I mean, that is true, isn't it? I mean, what else do we get from? I mean, come on, let's be honest.
Yes, that was like a long-standing joke. So
now
so
I haven't been to the strip joints, but I've read many magazines about the strip joints and magazines.
I bet you have.
Yes.
I bet you have, like most men say.
Yes, of course.
I've only read about it. But I, try to put it in a nutshell. We moved from Canada to the U.S. My ex-husband was a computer programmer, had high aspirations, became very successful. We lived in California for a couple of years.
Where in California?
We were in San Francisco, Sausalito, actually.
Oh, so beautiful over there. Love Sausalito.
It is stunning. It's stunning. And that was our home for 2 years. It was like an extended vacation. By that time, we had 2 children. They were little. So I didn't want to come to the U.S. I came kicking and screaming. And then when he said, let's move to California, I'm like, well, why not? I don't like it here in Michigan. I was on 4 acres of land, very remote, alone, hated it.
I mean, that's Michigan. Were you like a Youper? Were you in the Upper Peninsula? Or?
Oh, God, no.
Oh, okay. You have too many teeth. You have too many teeth to be a Youper. That's impossible.
I wasn't that far up, but came back. He built his company during the dot-com era.
Nice.
And one of the survivors.
Unusual. Very unusual.
Very unusual. And, worked hard and had a windfall and had, money that we'd never expected and built big homes and businesses. And then as our 25th wedding, or 20th, just after our 20th wedding anniversary, is when the shit hit the fan, so to speak.
Yes.
Everything fell apart. I fell apart.
Well, you should have known. I mean, any man who gets married and then makes money, I mean, the marriage is over. It's done. It's just a question of when it's going to end, right? I mean, pretty much.
Nobody told me that.
Yeah.
At a restaurant, we built a restaurant and a home and a business. And, unfortunately, I think it was clearly both sides. I never blame him or it's one or the other. But when a man tells, and then we've been together since we were 18.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Preface that. I met him and I was 18. He was 20.
Right.
Had nothing. And we built it all together.
Well, 18 in Canada, you've got ice and maple syrup. That's all you've got. So,
Exactly. Right. Exactly. But when somebody tells you that they don't have to work at a marriage, you shouldn't have to work at a marriage. I mean, I got nothing. I have nothing to work with.
Yeah.
You built a home, you built a business, you built your career, you went to school, you build and put everything into that. How is it that you can't, you don't have to put anything into us?
Yeah. I mean, I think that's a very traditional, old school male mentality, right? I mean, men are disgusting pigs, let's be honest, right? And they were even worse back then. And and I think that was kind of like the idea that the man went out and worked and the women took care of the house and took care of the kids and took care of everything. And then that was it, and never the twain shall meet, as they say.
Correct. I felt like after a while, I mean, it didn't help that infidelity, as the beautiful Lady Di says, there is no room for three people in a marriage.
Unless you have a lot of money. And then somehow it has to open up or,
I don't know. We had a lot of money and it didn't matter. It's just,
Well, no, that's what I was saying. I was trying to say a joke. It didn't come out exactly right. But that's right. Typically what happens when men get money, they get access. And I mean, we as a man, maybe as a woman, you're only as good as your options. Right. And when especially a middle-aged or older man and you have a lot of money, all of a sudden you have all of these options open up to you. And I think is the rare man who can stick with it even through the expansion of his horizons, let's say, right?
Well, and unfortunately, as a double-edged sword, it wasn't just an affair. It was an affair with a friend.
His sorry.
Wife, my friend, children, families. So yeah, it was a cluster, let me tell you.
That's tough. That's tough.
And it was tough. But you know what? What doesn't kill you makes you stronger.
Yeah, well, or it kills you. One of the two. Eventually, it just takes a little extra time.
Yeah, we're all gonna die one day.
Now, were you a child of divorce?
Nope. Okay. Neither was he. Neither was he. Neither one of us. Let me tell you, talk about old school. He's Italian from the old country. Very, very traditional.
That's all you have to say. Done. I get it. I get the whole backstory now. Now it all makes sense. Yeah. Well, I'm sorry that happened. Obviously, it's a terrible thing. It's traumatic for everybody. I mean, I went through my own divorce. I think a lot of times we tend to grow apart. That's something that happens, and you can kind of emotion. It's a little bit easier and that's what me and my ex-wife. We just kind of grew apart. I mean, there was no huge event that occurred, no terrible thing. I mean, I didn't hurt her, and she didn't hurt me. It just didn't work anymore. So mine was easy, but I know a lot of divorces do have something like yours where it's this horrible traumatic event that you have PTSD and it takes a long time just to recover emotionally. Forget about everything else, which we're probably going to talk about, which is the money and the friends and the lifestyle and living and starting over and all these other things, waking up by yourself after, 20, 30 years. I mean, it's rough. Yeah, it's rough.
Yeah. Yeah. No, you hit the nail on the head on all counts.
Yeah. Okay, so let's get into it. Let's start getting nasty with it. All right, so you finished your divorce, and then now while you were going through your divorce, did you say, hey, I think I can be helpful to other people, or did that come later on?
No, it came later. I always knew that I had another purpose. I stayed home with my children, raised them. I was fortunate enough to be able to stay home, and I did that. Not only my ex-husband retired early, retired when he was 40.
Oh my God, way too much time on his hands.
Exactly. Oh yeah, the perfect storm. Probably spent a few years, 5 years maybe, traveling. I did meet someone else. We did get married, 10 years together, 5 years married, something I swore up and down I would never do. In all of that, continuing to, because do you ever really launch your children? I'm not sure.
Not anymore. Not anymore.
No. Ultimately, 2020 hit.
Yeah.
And then I was finding myself, I was just saying to someone, I got tired of Netflix and banana bread baking, and I knew I had to do something else. I was like, all right, this is lasting longer than 2 weeks. It's lasting longer than a month. Yeah. So I started taking online courses. And honestly, without getting into all of it, that's really what happened. And I just kept taking one class and another class.
So what were the courses? Were they like coping with divorce or doing what?
Nope, nothing to do with divorce.
Okay.
It was the first class I took was a free Yale University class called The Science of Wellbeing. And I thought, well, we're sitting in this mess. I need to figure out the science of how I'm going to stay well. And it really it went from there. I took classes on, I'm not sure if you ever heard of Mind Valley. It's a platform and there's a plethora of courses. They call them, they don't call them courses. I can't think of what they call them right now. But I was introduced once again to Michael Beckwith. He is a spiritual leader in meditation. I learned meditation and trying to, concentrate on my health. And then that's just kind of when I discovered I wanted to get into life coaching.
Right.
And then it just went from there. I certified as a health coach. I got my own got my own life coach, and she encouraged me to write a book. So I wrote my first book.
Look at you, Nanette. Go, baby, go.
That was an incredible experience. I have just been like nonstop for the last 4 years.
What was the book about?
It is my memoir written for inspiration, and basically just, how you have a vision for your life.
That's funny.
Exactly. And then it just falls off. It literally.
No, I got it.
I wrote this book, and it's interesting. Somebody asked me, well, what would you do if your ex-husband wrote a book? I'm like, go ahead, let him. I mean, I didn't write it. There was no husband bashing. There was nothing, not why I wrote the book.
I mean, that's such a big thing. I mean, that's such a big thing about getting divorced. When I got divorced, my kids were I think like 8, 9 or 9 and 10 years old. And one of the things is that you have to leave your ex alone. You have to let the anger subside. And the longer you hold that in by bashing it, whether it's the husband or the wife, I mean, the longer your torture lasts, I mean, you may think you're bashing your ex-spouse, but in reality, all you're doing is holding on to the pain and then projecting it to your kids in a horrible, horrible way.
Absolutely. And, that happened for a minute when we were trying to get settled and figure everything out. But I actually think it really annoyed him that I just didn't engage.
Well, I think he probably had guilt, right? He had a little survivor's guilt going on, right? And it probably would have been easier if you hated him. Like you were reacting with grace to him, and he probably felt a little shame and embarrassment. And he was like, fuck, I can't even hate her for this now. Yeah.
Exactly. So, and it took me a minute to get to that point of just like, clearly we can't be friends. So let's just live our lives. Right. Our kids were older, 16 and up, they weren't babies. So, but it took a minute to stop, reacting to text messages and reacting to.
I still have mine just in case she ever comes back. I'm going to say, look, I wanted to show you what you wrote to me but I actually have a good relationship with my ex-wife. Okay. So going into divorce coaching. So in my previous life, I was an attorney, and most of us stay. Yeah. Yeah, right. I hate to say it. It's kind of, I usually don't make it public, but whatever. But most attorneys stay as far away from family law as possible because, it's not law. It's just mediating two enraged combatants, and it's the emotion, and it's dealing with the kid issues, which are always very hard to just deal with emotionally, right? I mean, as a lawyer, knowing what's happening to the kids and it's hard. I mean, you're really wading into some poisonous, deadly, shark-infested waters. So why did you decide to dive right in there?
In 2021, I think it was when someone approached me. She was a divorce coach and approached me to be in her group of coaches. And my first thought was, a divorce coach? What? I'd never heard of such a thing.
Today is the first day I've heard of one. So yes, I agree.
Why did I not hear of a divorce coach? And looking back, I'm going, because I Googled how to save my marriage. It didn't occur to me to Google, how do I divorce? Society, what does society tell you when you're divorcing? You got a good lawyer, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's the first thing they say to you. Mm-hmm. And you're deer in the headlights, brain fog, divorce fog. You can't think straight. So you go and rely on a person who really doesn't care about you emotionally.
No.
They want the facts. They want the legal stuff. Meanwhile, you're blubbering and you're crying and you're enraged. When I discovered that divorce coaching was a thing, I was like, oh my gosh, now I know the direction I have to go in. I know how difficult it was navigating this dark hole by myself. And I chose to coach women over 40, likely married for 20, 30 years, because that's what I went through.
Yeah.
And the gray divorce that is so common and highest statistics right now for divorce.
It's the fastest growing cohort of divorcees right now, right? Is people over 50.
Yeah. And often it's the women who initiate it.
Yeah, that's what I've read. So give me like the basic parameters of a divorce coach. Because look, I think probably the first thing people think about when they talk about divorce, especially with women who generally speaking are the homemakers and the caretakers for the children. Not always, but I think most of the time.
Often.
So there's the financial part of it. It's like, how am I going to survive? How am I going to have enough money to live? But I think my guess is there's probably a whole other list of factors that come before that.
Yes.
That you deal with on day one.
Yes. Well, my first hurdle is to educate people in general, but for me, women, that divorce coaching is a necessity. It's not a luxury. And I've heard that a few times. I don't have the luxury of being able to hire a divorce coach. If I would have hired a divorce coach and had an emotional support or someone that I could, bounce questions off of, bounce ideas off of that seem obvious to those who are thinking clearly, but if you're not thinking clearly, there's just a jumble of thoughts. I don't even want to think about how much money I wasted on my attorney, calling, being emotional, being enraged, being angry. And of course, she was gracious and took my call and my emails
and billed you for every 0.1 of time.
Absolutely. And this is kind of what I've realized, that this is why I want to be on podcasts. This is why I want to be a speaker. This is why I want to scream it from the mountaintops, that a divorce coach is a part of the professional team that you need to hire. Right. Absolutely, you need an attorney, but you also need a good financial advisor. You also need a coach that you can, talk to maybe before you have to see the lawyer the next day. Let's make sure you have all of your paperwork in order and get everything, pretty much everything in order before you even have to see an attorney.
Yeah, I mean, I remember my divorce, and I am an attorney, so I have a little bit of familiarity with the laws and some idea. But I still had, of course, I had an attorney handling it. And at the beginning, like you, I was calling her all the time just to kind of vent, and just to say things I didn't need to tell her, or just because she knew about everything, and so I figured she's the right person to talk. And then I got that first bill. I'm like, what the fuck am I doing? Like, I gotta stop doing this, right? And I mean, having somebody to talk to who understands the process is important. Because when I talked to my friends who didn't know anything about it, that's fine for certain emotional needs I maybe had. But you want somebody who understands, like when you're talking about the community property, or you're talking about visitation or custody of the kids and all these things, like you don't want to talk to a wall. Somebody who's saying, I hope you feel better. You want somebody who understands the process a little bit and says, well, let me tell you what you can do with that a little bit, right?
Yeah. Absolutely. Or, here's the thought, or here's what I did, or here's what I've heard. But speaking to friends and family, I remember feeling like this. I'm like, I feel like that's all I talk about. I talk about. And I mean, I had a counselor and she was great. But again, looking back, I would have hired a coach in a heartbeat.
So what are the first couple of questions you ask when somebody contacts you? What's the onboarding process?
Well, the most specific part is, what stage of the divorce are they at? I want to make sure, I really want them to call me when they're just thinking about it. Yeah. They're just contemplating it. One of my current clients, we talked, her husband doesn't even know she wants a divorce yet.
Yeah, well, men are dumb. They usually don't know. I mean, let's be honest, right?
Well, unfortunately, she's a little afraid of him, which is really hard. She was asking me a few things, and I answered what some people might think is a silly question, but they just when I answered them, she was just felt so comfortable and Like, oh, okay, that makes sense. I introduced her to a financial advisor, a certified divorce financial advisor, who could answer some questions and kind of help her get her life set up. And it might take her a year to get to where she needs to be. But she was so grateful to feel at ease. So back to your question is that's the most important is, okay, what stage are you at?
Right.
Maybe they're right in the middle of it. And, we got to sort out some details. They could be right at the end. One of my clients, I felt bad for her, but she didn't listen. But I said, we had a few sessions and she was going to see her attorney. And then finally at the end, it was the day to sign the next day. I said, are you absolutely sure that you are comfortable with this decision? I didn't think it was a good decision. And she knew that. She was just so anxious to get it over with that she just was like, I'm fine. It's going to be fine. Well, it wasn't fine because he screwed her over. And and she kind of let him because she didn't want to fight anymore. And that's why I want to talk to women before they even get into that fight.
Well, that's an interesting question also. Like, so I imagine the advice you give them is sometimes different from the advice they get from their attorneys.
Yeah,
so like, how do they deal with the conflict between you, who's a divorce coach, I get it, versus, a lawyer in a big office charging a lot of money with a lot of experience? Like, how do you deal with that conflict?
Well, again, I talk to them just like this. I'm not in a suit and I'm not, sitting at a big desk intimidating them. I'm letting them cry.
Well, your bangs are a little bit intimidating for me. I got to be honest with you. All that hair,
my hair is really bugging me today. It was a really bad hair day.
Looks great. No, I'm sorry. Keep going.
It doesn't. I'm getting my hair done tomorrow. But I really just try to be honest and upfront, and I don't sugarcoat anything. I try to give them that. This is forever. This decision that you make has to take you into the future. Does that make answer your question?
No, it does. Well, look, my guess is, and just listening to talking to you, getting a little sense of your personality, my guess is that you're probably a friend. Like, I mean, that's kind of the relationship. You're a friend who understands the process, who can not only listen to what they're saying, but maybe give them some feedback about things they want to kind of think about based on your knowledge of the process.
Right. Here's a good example. A couple of my clients did not want to leave the marital home. They were determined to stay in the home. And I said, okay, if you can afford it, that's something that you really need to check at your expenses and your income and talk to your financial advisor. Make sure you have a financial advisor. And they decided to stay in the homes. And then I swear each of them were like 2 or 3 months later, it was, yeah, you were right. I need to just get rid of the home. But it's a process. It's a process of emotions. I was like that. I was like, I'm not leaving my marital home. I spent years building it and doing this. And then, after a long story, after a while, I was just like, no, I need to leave. Well, I need to leave and create my own new space so I can make new memories.
Yeah. Well, my guess too, like as a coach, they have to develop some trust in you. Right. Absolutely. So it's probably the first couple of weeks or months, whatever, they might kind of do what they want to do and say, what the fuck does Nanette know? And then a couple of times they bash their face on the wall and they go, maybe she knew a few things,
Yeah. It's like, oh yeah, you were right. And it's not, I told you so. It's like, you had to figure it out yourself. Like nobody, I'm here to guide you. I'm here to walk beside you. I'm not here to tell you what to do. Right. I'm here to give some options. I think it's really helpful that I've been through it. I had teenagers that they can ask me quite often. They'll say, how did you handle this? I've been anxious to talk to you because I'm not sure how to deal with this.
Right. So give me the 3 or 4 things that comes up in almost every divorce and how you kind of deal with them.
I mean, how everyone, first.
How you as a coach deal with look, obviously every situation is different, but we only have, 30 some odd minutes, so we can't go into all of them. But just like generally speaking, like some of the things you see over and over and over again, that like there's some general advice you give.
The first one is the finances. Unfortunately, how women are it's their emotional side, and men it's the financial side. And unfortunately, men, there's a pattern. They always want to tell their soon-to-be ex, you won't be able to live without me. You can't survive. You're not getting everything. You're not getting half. And I just try to tell them first, again, speak with a financial advisor, know what your money is, and then you talk to your attorney, and they will tell you differently. Don't let them intimidate you.
Yeah.
And I'm not here to male bash, but that's what I hear all the time.
No, you can male bash. I male bash every day, Nanette. It's fine. There's nothing wrong with it. It's reality.
And then it's the children. One of a woman I talked to not too long ago hadn't told their teenage children, their young teens, that they were divorcing. And she's like, I'm not really sure if I should say or why or what this or that and how to do it. And I said, you know what? I'm going to tell you something. My teenage daughter, she was probably 16 at the time. I actually had to tell her why her and her dad and I were splitting up, and the situation and who it was.
Ugh.
And later, a couple years later, and it was her best friend that was the mom. A couple of years later, I said to her, you know what, honey, I'm really sorry. I feel like I shouldn't have told you the truth. And she looked at me, and she has got like a powerful personality. She's like, no way, Mom. I would have been so mad if you hadn't told me the truth. And that's one of the things that I said to her. It's like, be truthful.
Well, it's interesting you say, because that's one of the things I talk to a lot of friends. I've sent probably 10 of my friends to my divorce attorney because she's so good, unfortunately. But I always find that too, that like people, they don't want to tell their kids what's going on. They want to hide it. The kids, first of all, they feel it and they know what's going on, even if you don't tell them. And it's always better, I think, and maybe I'm overstepping my bounds here, but I think it's always better just tell them what's going on. Like they can handle it, and they'll be much happier with the honesty. And you can manage the environment once everybody knows all the factors on the table. Like, just tell them,
Just tell them. Actually, my ex and I lived in sheer hell for 2 years, thinking we covered up this big, ugly secret we had. They knew. My kids later, we knew, Mom. We knew something was wrong. We knew that there was like the tension. You could cut it with a knife.
Yeah. When I told my 10-year-old daughter, she said, "What took you so long?"
Do you know how often that happens, though, too? Is that the little ones are the ones that are like, my ex-husband and I had gotten back together for a little bit after he'd left the first time. My two oldest were really happy because that's what I wanted. Why? I don't know, but that's what I wanted.
Yeah.
And my youngest was the only one who was like, yeah, well, that's not going to work.
Yeah, exactly.
And she was right.
I mean, we always think we're so smart and we're such good actors and our children need us so badly. And you know what? They know what's going on.
They are smart. They are very, very smart.
Especially these days too, now that, kids have access to information that we never could have even imagined. They understand a lot more things than we did when we were young.
Well, and we don't give them enough credit.
No,
we've
totally
exposed them to this world. Now we have to let them learn to live in it.
Yeah.
And it's got to be full of honesty.
Yeah.
Because our world is filled with too many liars.
Yeah.
So
isn't that the truth? I'm a lawyer. I mean, I'm a professional liar. So I know all about it. Has your business exploded? I would think you'd be the most popular girl on the block. I mean, I think people would ring in your phone every day.
Again, Dan, I'm trying to make women aware that. So here's the other thing that's a big problem when a woman is divorcing. Her finances. She's terrified. I have no money. I don't have, because there's a lot of, I hear horror stories of men clutching that purse string, and they don't let the wife, sometimes not even helping with the kids. It's heartbreaking.
Yeah.
It's frustrating. So then they don't feel like they have the money to spend. So, I mean, I have a private Facebook group. It's free. There's a couple hundred women in it. There's not a lot of engagement. Women are very fearful of putting themselves out there.
I do know. So let me ask you though, not to question your business plan or anything like that, but why don't you deal with men? I mean, yeah, they're kind of different issues, but look, as a guy, I was lucky because I was a lawyer. And so I kind of knew things a little bit more than some of the other lay people, but like still, I mean, guys have the same types of issues. A lot of the things are identical. And it seems to me that you could probably provide a really good service to guys too. Like, why not?
I think so. Well, here's why not. And I'm not saying I never will. when you take a business course and you're being, especially for coaching, they always tell you niche down, be narrow, go down, go really pin down your ICA. And that's what I did. But it's funny you say that. I am working on building that, because this rebuilding program that I have, it does include men. It does include men in the healing process.
Yeah. And I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to disagree. I'm going to disagree with who told you to niche it down. I think that being a divorce coach in and of itself is a very niche,
Yes,
activity. I mean, you're really narrow on what you're focusing on. And to me, again, as a guy, I know that I could have really benefited a lot, even as much as I knew, by having somebody who could walk me through. And look, guys also, we are taught to hold our emotions in and not show anybody and not cry and not do anything and whatever. And especially now that women are becoming obviously way more part of the workforce. I mean, women are probably 52% of the workforce and 70% of college graduates now. I think men are becoming a lot more comfortable with respecting and trusting women to really help them. And
we're working on it.
Yeah, no, and I think it would be great. Why not? Why not?
Well, I don't know, Dan. Why not? Maybe I will start doing that, because
I might become a divorce coach, Nanette. I got to tell you. You may have some competition, sister.
I definitely want to consider that, because I've actually had men ask me that, considering broadening my horizons, as they say.
Yeah, 100%. I think you should. What the hell do I know? I'm just some dopey podcaster.
But you know what? So I actually think that men would be more apt to spend the money, because let's face it, I can't do it for free.
Well, not only would they spend the money, but going back to the point about emotions, men, when they're talking to their other buddies, are not as likely to be emotional and talk about the pain and the hurt. Whereas if they've got somebody who's private and confidential and is a woman, I think they'd be much more apt to let that out. And that would be really, women, I think, are the opposite. I think women are talking to their friends about the emotions all the time, and they get that kind of emotional support. Men don't. So.
And that's a really good perspective. I take that perspective, because again, I've been asked that before, and
look, I'm only going to take 10% of all of your male fees.
If you send me the clients,
No problem. All right, real quick, let's talk about the rebuilding program you're developing. Sounds kind of interesting.
Yeah. Well, I didn't develop it.
Okay.
It's been around since the 80s. And again, why did I not know of it? Why had I not heard of it? I actually had a gentleman who was one of the founders reach out on LinkedIn, and I'm just like, okay, this is interesting. Long story short, I signed up. I had to take the program myself, which was a bit challenging, because you kind of got to go back into that, emotional world you used to be in. When I finished taking this course, it's a 10-week program. I said to my instructor, this is a game changer in the healing realm for people divorcing.
Yeah.
It just, the things that they make you dive into and address. And even more amazing are the reviews of people who have taken this program. They're just, 5 gold stars. It's just hard to explain unless you're really going through this program. But it's 10 weeks. And this one review on it was, here, an important part is, anyone who doesn't get anything out of this program did not put anything into it.
Yeah. So is that a program you run? So you run it, administer it, or how?
I facilitate these meetings. Yes. Yes.
And is it a group thing? Is it a group format?
Yeah, it's group format. Yeah. So I want to start one at the end of the month, getting people to sign up for it. And then I'll probably do another one in the fall. But, and I don't want them to be too big. I know that a lot of the times they'll have them, rent space, and you actually go, well, right now, that's just not an easy thing to do. Doing
I don't think that's
Zoom.
the world today anyway. I mean, with Zoom, you just don't need it anymore, right? I mean, people are used to doing it this way, and it's fine.
Well, and you get up from the dinner table, you grab your tea or coffee or whatever, and then you go sit in your office and go through the Zoom class. But there's 19 rebuilding steps, and I remember going through each and every one of them.
Yeah.
But I navigated it on my own. And I said to my instructor, to be able to have somebody, I always felt like I was taking one step forward, 2 steps back when I was trying to figure my life out after I was picking up the pieces. This program, it it addresses everything and makes you really dive in. But I'm a firm believer that healing's an active process.
Yes.
There's nothing magical about it. No fairy dust is sprinkled on you.
Yeah. There's no magic. There's no magic potion. That's for sure.
You have to pour yourself into it. You've got to be open-minded and want to get out of the rut you're in. You can't sit in denial forever.
Yeah, I got it. Nanette, where do people find you? How do they hire you? Where are your books? Give them all the deets.
Everything about me for my business is at livelifenowwithpurpose.com. My resources, I have digital programs. You can hire me one-to-one coaching. I've got books and journals. Yeah, actually, that's the best place to go. livelifenowwithpurpose.com. And you can scroll through and find out more about me.
Great. Well, look, what you're doing is great. It's desperately needed in the world. I'm surprised that I've never heard of divorce coaches either. So I'm glad you're kind of getting out there and spreading the word, because what you're doing it's really important. And I really think you should take on men. I think they need the service as much as women do. And I think you'd probably do a great job.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. And I will take your advice, Dan, coming from a big professional lawyer like yourself.
An internationally known podcaster, and I'm only 10%. For you, I'll tell you what, I'll give you a bargain, 8%. We'll make it fair. Thanks for coming on today. It's been a lot of fun. I appreciate it, and we'll talk to you soon. All right, everybody. Well, we've had another mess here today, Middle Age Mess. We want to thank Nanette Murphy for coming on, and we will see you next time.